Welcome, everybody, to the Loud and Drunk podcast. This is Dan, and we are going to actually talk about something we haven't talked about on this podcast. You figure with a podcast with four guys, this topic would have come up at some point before episode, 40? Sports.
Kind of wild.
Yeah, sports.
Finally.
All things.
Finally, because I want to get into the nitty-gritty of Huey Lewis and the News.
It is a catchy album.
It is a great one.
Especially when you're axing another human being to death.
It really keeps the tone. I mean, it is hip to be square. It's a jaunty little number.
It is. So, Moses, you've mentioned on the podcast before that you only really know about 90s Bulls, but I know that to be factually inaccurate because we've talked about more than 90s Bulls basketball. So, in terms of sports, what would you like to talk about in this episode?
I guess aside from the 90s Bulls and consequently the Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone feud at WCW, I would like to talk about Doc Ellis and how fucking stupid soccer is and how that's just kind of wrestling. Them flopping all over the place just trying to sell a fucking bump.
Justin.
Yes, sir.
How about you? What would you like to talk about in terms of sports?
You know what? I have kind of, in a way, moved away from sports because they frustrate the shit out of me.
And we're going to get into that because we all have gears that have been grinded in terms of sports, but we also have a special guest, sir.
Fred Williamson, very happy to be here. I think my chime in is going to be about baseball. It is boring, and it's a poor man's sport in general, just terrible in every way. Also, I don't like the Patriots, but I can go a little bit more positive as we go on.
But you know what's not terrible? Our sponsor, The Underground. Located in historic Smithville Village, on the way to Atlantic City, is Jersey's coolest proprietor of rock and roll and punk rock apparel, horror merch, posters, accessories, and more. You can find them online at theoriginalunderground.com. The Underground, it's a bad store for bad people. I'd also like to take this time to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. We are on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. If you are on YouTube and Rumble, smash that like button, leave us a comment, share this video with your friends, and get in on the conversation because it's sports. You're gonna want to chime in anyway. Join us on social media. We are at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and if you feel like being spied on, TikTok. Who are we kidding? You're being spied on if you're on any of these platforms.
I'm looking at the listeners right now.
Yes, we can see everything that they do.
There's a Chinese man with a microphone right next to me. I don't know if you guys have seen this person, but he hasn't said a word.
He's been asking us about launch codes this entire time.
Oh, is he talking to you? He's staring right at me, but he wouldn't acknowledge me.
No, he's been asking me for launch codes this entire time.
This is awkward now.
You know how upfront I am about having been prior service? So, yeah, he's asking me about all the nuclear codes.
I'll tell you, P.F. Chang is starting to piss me off.
No, I could get behind that.
All right, guys. We're all guys. We've all watched sports. We've all been to sporting events. At one point or another, we've had sports piss us off. Now, I'm not even talking about our team fucking lost or this, that, or the other thing. I'm talking about something that's really just bugged the shit out of you. I have plenty of things to talk about this. We could do a whole hour just about my fucking grievances.
We are going to be fighting for airtime on this episode.
Well, it's also because, I worked in sports.
Yes.
I actually kind of still fucking do work in sports. I worked at NHL.com. I was a Flyers blogger. There's a bunch of shit that I was fucking pissed off about. But everybody's got to talk, so I'll just pick one.
There you go.
What I'll do is I'll get everything started by letting you guys take the floor first. So, Justin, I remember back in the day, we would meet up, at the bar that was local to us at the time.
Of course.
It was a good time. You would watch the Raiders game.
Yes.
I would watch the Dolphins game. But in years after that, you kind of fell off of, watching football and all that.
I have. Hilariously, I still play fantasy football, which is hilarious, but I don't watch the games. I literally just look at the numbers and crunch the numbers now, which is
It's the way to do it.
it's horrible in its own way.
The most boring part of
Yes,
it.
yes. But, I grew up going to Knicks games. I grew up going to Nets games. I grew up going to Old Veterans Stadium to Phillies games. I used to go to sports games all the time. I loved it. It was fantastic. You're here in New Jersey. You have a lot of local teams, essentially, that you can get to within a couple hours. But as I get older, and these entities, the NFL especially, MLB, the NHL, they've really kind of shown how much of a business entity they are now.
Yep.
That's where a lot of frustrations come from because things have become so politicized in sports. And it's really just taken away from it. It Just absolutely.
It's not about the sport anymore.
Well,
Because the sport, by its definition, it's about human competition.
Exactly.
They
And this,
broke kayfabe.
well, this is the part that really grinds my gears about sports because I'm the type of person, I just want to watch the goddamn game. I'll watch any game. I'll watch like college football, the NFL, and especially for the NFL. I really fell off of watching that. Now I just kind of stick with, I just watch the Dolphins now because 26, I think it wasn't even 2016. I think it was like 2013, 2014 maybe when Colin Kaepernick did the whole, kneeling in terms
Taking
of
the knee.
protest.
That's really where it kind of took off.
That's where it took off. It's not where I think it kind of hit. Like it became a culture war type thing. I'll die myself out. I wrote a fucking blog post about how he has the right to protest.
I
about
agree
that.
with you.
Yeah.
I was going
Yeah.
to say that. I'm glad that you landed at the same thing. Yeah.
Well, but also at the same time, I wish I wrote an addendum to that because while I do think he has the right to protest it, he's a fucking idiot and he
I
doesn't
agree.
know
Yeah.
anything.
Completely
what he was-
agree. Yeah, I completely agree. The right to do it, I'm about that, and I'm sorry to interject,
No.
but yeah, the right to do it. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Like you're who you are,
Yeah.
and you're a celebrity. That's really what it is. Like,
Yeah.
should you still be allowed to use that voice as a celebrity because people want to see you play? And it's like whether you should or you shouldn't, I don't know. But should you be allowed to? That's not up to the NFL to decide because they're just making a money decision. And if we're all watching it because we want to see these like peak athletes who are like not for nothing, the reason that you're watching it is because these people are doing things that you're not capable of doing.
Yeah.
That's what celebrity is,
But on the reverse side of that, Colin Kaepernick doing that brought a lot more watchers than would have normally watched a football game. Well, I forget what team he was on, but
He was on the 49ers at the time.
it was a popular team.
That was a popular team. And also the interesting thing about it, too, is because he played this whole sob story. It's like, oh, nobody wants me. Nobody wants me. He actually exercised an option in his contract to be a free agent after he pulled that shit. And nobody wanted to touch him because the headache versus talent ratio was too far in advance for the headache part. So, like, he actually lost his starting job to some schlub named Blaine Gabbert, or Gabbard, excuse me.
Gabbard, yeah.
Yeah. And he sucked, but like Chip Kelly was like, he was the coach of the 49ers at the time, was like, I don't want to have to deal with this guy. Let's try the young guy.
It's a personal choice that he made. You're being paid just to fucking play ball.
Yeah.
That's it. Not to voice your political opinions, whatever they may happen to be. That's not what you're getting paid to do. So it's understandable that, like, I don't want this fucking headache from this guy.
Yeah.
At the same time, if he wants to use that celebrity, it's not wrong of him to do so.
No, it's not wrong for him to do it, but also there's also different avenues for him to take than just to do it on the football field.
Yeah.
Like ESPN is a fucking rotating door for athletes to air their fucking political beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's actually a tie into one of my biggest gripes. Because ESPN Sports Center, that used to be a thing, that used to be tune-in television for me. I wanted to watch all the highlights, I wanted to get the fucking news, and now you go on to Sports Center and they're like, essentially like, instead of seeing any highlights or actually being told any sports news, I get to be called a racist for half an hour. Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is this part? And then the NFL, like as you alluded to before, in terms of being politicized, they have the most meaningless virtue signals on the field right now.
Oh, it's
like,
total bullshit.
Like, because, you and I go to the bar on Sundays and, watch a game or two, and they have, at the end of the end zones, it has end racism at the fucking, like, written in the field. And I'm like, what Klan member is sitting there in his hood, watching his Bears game, and being like, oh!
I love that he's a Bears fan. That's not where I would have went, but all right.
He takes his hood off. He runs outside with his fire extinguisher, and he puts out the burning cross on his ethnic neighbor's yard.
Absolutely. And then he serves watermelon to school children in the hood.
Yeah, he's suddenly he's cured. He's cured just from seeing end racism.
It's exactly what you said. It's just stupid virtue signaling. Because on the one hand, it's like, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to like say that it was the right move, but like Kaepernick does this, NFL or whoever it is, they don't want to do that because it hurts their pocket.
Yeah.
They're not really about that. But then you make up for that by putting up a meaningless banner at the end zone. And it's the same as with everything fucking corporate.
Well, that's where we get these great Budweiser commercials, too.
Thank God.
And
Well, it is funny. So, like, it's been so long since I've watched the football game. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, they did that because Kaepernick did that kneeling for the anthem thing, around that 2015, 2016
somewhere around
time frame. And then after George Floyd died, that's when everything kind of, like, the roosters came home, the rooster, whatever the fuck the expression is. The
Chickens came home to roost.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you sell Lucy's.
Well, that was
As long as they're
that was
cool.
a different instance.
No, it's kind of all the same thing.
No, that was that Lucy thing. Was that Eric Gardner?
I think that was Eric Gardner. That was New York.
Yeah. That was New York. He was
yeah.
selling Lucy's.
hard
and he
to
just
pay
got, like,
attention
it was
how
just
many
like
people
selling
get shot.
cigarettes. Like I don't even
He
know
was
about
selling
this.
Lucy cigarettes.
He was selling-
Well,
yeah,
it was a shit, like it's weird that he's doing
because
that.
it's
but
illegal.
I know the legality,
yeah.
but it's like it's weird that as a professional football player, that's what you're
No,
doing.
no,
It's not.
That's not. No, it was a poor black man selling cigarettes. And and he got killed by the police for selling cigarettes, essentially. And then the football player, who was also black, felt that this was like basically like that it was racist and that black people are disproportionately killed by the police. So he took a knee to try and to draw attention to
add
that.
more context to the Colin Kaepernick thing. He's biracial.
Yeah.
And also, like, he never knew his
All black people are biracial.
No,
if you're
but-
from America.
Well, also too, because like I think his dad was a black man and his biological mom was white.
Yeah.
And then his adoptive parents, because they both didn't want to have anything to do with
It's
him,
already more than I knew about.
were white. And he's also like just completely disavowed them, which is like a bullshit fucking move. Imagine being adopted by two people like, oh yeah, we'll take care of you.
I would like to think that there's more context there, but based on the limited information that we have, if it's because they're white, then yeah, that's kind of shitty.
I mean, because as much as I know about the guy, like, he actually spoke volumes. Like, he was very nice about, like, his adoptive parents. Like, oh, I love my adoptive parents and all that stuff.
I never saw an interview with him.
And it just took, like, until he had this, like, critical consciousness moment.
Yeah.
Where he was just like, oh, now, like, oh, they're bad.
Yeah.
So
Because they're white.
Because they're white.
Yeah.
And also, it's just, I don't really, like, chime in about the guy too much because it's like a limited thought process.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, at the
topic.
end of the day, he's just a football player.
He's not even a football player.
Yeah.
What was he? Like,
He was a quarterback
kicker,
for the
right?
San
Oh, he
Francisco
was a quarterback? I
49ers.
thought he was a
They went to
kicker.
the Super Bowl one year with him when Jim Harbaugh was their coach. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens in a Super Bowl where the power went out halfway through.
Yeah.
And then it just went all downhill from there because, he was an all right passer, but anything that made him special was he was a good runner. And so once everybody figured out that, like, oh, we just spy on him and he can't beat us with his arm. So once they figured that out, he went to being
Just a
like
speed game.
Yeah, just like a speed game, and he couldn't really fucking beat anybody with his arm. So like at that point, the 49ers were like a 500 below 500 team.
Yeah.
And then Jim Harbaugh went to Michigan because they just backed a dump truck of money to his house. They're like, come coach over here, and now he's in a whole schlep. It's true. It's by the time this comes out, he's probably something going on with him.
Yep.
But, with Colin Kaepernick, he's done a whole bunch of race baiting bullshit where he's done documentaries. He's called out Jaleel White of all people for being like an Uncle Tom. Like,
Oh, I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
But nobody really likes Jaleel White. Even
what are
the
you
cast.
talking about? That was the voice of Sonic the fucking Hedgehog, man. He also called out, was it Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Alberto.
I mean, he literally
Alfonso Ribeiro.
played an Uncle Tom, in fairness.
Nobody liked him on the set of Family Matters.
Wait, what?
Jaleel White.
Oh.
Nobody liked him on that set.
No, fair enough.
Well, also they didn't like him because he was supposed to be a bit character.
Well,
in
he
that
was only
show.
supposed to do a one.
Yeah,
one-off
and then he
that.
just
Oh, yeah, I get
ended up
it now.
stealing
And
the
then
show.
he drove Judy to go do porn.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
You know a lot about Family Matters.
I do.
Can we switch the topic of the episode?
No.
Switch the topic.
All right, guys, you're listening to our Family Matters podcast.
I'm gonna delve into some Die Hard then.
All right. We did get Carl on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, once he went down that really just ridiculous racial, he called the NFL, like especially the combine, the equivalent of slavery.
Yes, I
and
do remember
then
that.
peeled back. He wrote a letter to the freaking New York Jets to replace Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback. So if the NFL is the equivalent of slavery, it's like the equivalent of, can I please go back onto the plantation?
It's you know what it's that is the institution flawed in this way, in perhaps a serious way. Maybe flawed is very much so an understatement. But to compare, it's like the same way when I hear things like that. It's like when people say that person is like Hitler.
Yeah.
It's just you've watered down your own argument by being too extreme. Unless you're talking about slavery,
They both have dark hair.
utilizing people as property, but then don't compare it to that.
Also-
or if you're going to do it, then quantify it in some way.
All of these kids that go through the combine, they're probably going to be drafted.
Yeah.
And they're
Most likely,
And
yeah.
also, they're young people,
Yeah, they're
so I
yo-
mean, I'll give them that credit. You know, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about just by virtue of being young.
And if you do get drafted, you're almost guaranteed, if you don't make millions of dollars straight out of the NFL draft, you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars because that's like the rookie minimum.
Yeah, but only for a little while,
But
right?
only
Like,
for a little while if you're not good. But if you get drafted first round, you're making like what, 7-8 million?
Yeah.
Straight out of the
and
NFL draft.
you're losing. You're losing. I always wonder about like and if I'm going off on a tangent, stop me.
We've
But,
done that already.
Fair enough. If you're making that kind of money as an athlete, where it's almost like a windfall tax at that point.
Yeah.
So the government's taking 60% plus, depending on what state you live in.
Yeah.
Right. They're taking the lion's share of that money. So now that's gone. So let's say it was like $5 million. You get $2. Still a shit ton of fucking money. You can do that for a few years unless you're Tom Brady, where you play until you're Biden's age. As far as that goes, though, you still have to pay your manager, your security, like things that I don't understand.
you gotta
like if
pay.
you're making millions a year, even if it's like just on paper, you have so many people that you need to share that money with, and they're taking usually percentages at that level. So it's not like a flat fee. Like I go to see my accountant, and he's like, "All right, Pete, $200 to do your taxes." I'm like, "Great," you know. But if you're making millions of dollars, the accountant's like, "All right, I take 10%."
Yeah,
to do
it's usually
this."
a flat 10% just for an agent or something
Yeah,
to that
exactly.
effect.
And you need many, like I have an accountant. I don't have other people that I employ, really, you know? But like he's got security, he's got like lawyers on hand, like things that I can't really, describe, but certainly they're there.
And
so the
all
money
of those-
does go fast.
All of those things that you described, though, is the antithesis of slavery.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you were in that situation, you wouldn't have the money at all
Yeah.
to purchase any of those things.
Also,
you wouldn't
you-
have the freedom to purchase
you
any of
do,
those
and
things.
you do choose to be a football player.
Yeah.
You know?
Are you saying that slavery doesn't have a good union?
Yeah, they have the worst union. All right, we went off on this tangent for a little bit, so I'll get everyone back on, into the fold.
Get these cats in the stable.
Oh, yeah. Moses.
Are cats in stables?
Yes, well, I mean, you are a herd of cats to wrangle. Moses, what really grinds your gears about sports these days?
It's a lot of the football or soccer, as we call it here.
Football, I think they say.
Football Americana.
Football.
Yeah, it's a high U.
Yeah.
And there's all of these ridiculous penalties where you don't even have to touch the person, but if they flop the right way, if they sell their fucking bump, then there's a card being thrown and it halts the game and other nonsense.
Also, hilariously, the NFL is going that way, too.
it is, yeah.
Every sport is going that way.
yeah.
But it's just ridiculous. Like, I watch wrestling for a reason because I enjoy that. I don't want to, not that I enjoy soccer terribly, but I don't want somebody doing a power bomb and being like, oh no, you can't do that. It's like, obviously you can't do that. Like, why are you trying to do that? But then they fucking sell it, and then it's all taken. It's all taken as seriously by the referees. And why would they take that? They're watching the game. I get they're watching a big area, but they know somebody didn't get hit, but they'll still
A
accept
soccer
it.
field is vast.
It is.
It's like three
But
times the size of a football.
You could tell if somebody actually, there's nobody near you. I know they all run fast and long, but you're not making it across the field in the time that you're just flopping on the ground like a Magikarp.
It's become like the culture of the game, especially with soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, that, you're going to try because you're trying to get that result
Exactly. Yeah, you want to win.
to gain
But then
advantage.
it's more of watching wrestling because you want this response for something that's either having it or
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying
and it
that's
takes away
why-
from the actual sport, which has been around longer than all of these other.
Moses, I would say that the difference between those things, because you're drawing this comparison between the two. With wrestling, it's that, yes, you're trying to get that response from the audience, and the referee is in on it. With soccer, at least the way that it seems to me, and my understanding of how it is that it's almost the opposite. It's that you as the player are trying to get that response from the ref.
From the ref instead of the audience.
The audience knows that you're full of shit.
Yeah.
But that's also the same way in any sport, because in hockey it's the same thing. Like, oh, if I embellish this, like maybe the player had his stick right by my shin, and I'm just gonna fall over to see if I can get that.
Yeah.
At least in hockey, if you embellish it, you'll get called for an unsportsmanlike.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not 100. I don't really know a whole lot about soccer or football, so I don't know if they'll do that. I think that's a card of some kind.
If you get caught, and I will say, as a little counterbalance to that with soccer, because I understand your disdain for it, and I don't watch it myself, but I will say it is a hyper athletic sport. Just due to the size of the field.
I'm not saying
and the
that.
injuries that when the injury is authentic, because I like to watch fucked up videos, and sometimes it's like somebody just like goes to like kick the ball, and somebody else is sprinting towards the ball as well, and they miss, and they kick as hard as they can, and they go right into another person's shin, and I've watched those bones split in half. It's a real fucking thing.
Yeah, but that's not a penalty.
Because that's incidental contact, I guess. Yeah. But like that shit that's happened in every sport. You figure in the one sport that wouldn't happen, it would be basketball. And it was a few years ago where I think a kid, it was in college basketball. A kid came down with a rebound, and I think he just fell the wrong way or fell on another kid's leg or whatever, and he got a compound fracture.
Straight out his leg.
Yeah, I think you were the one who showed me that video or photo.
One of the most horrific in that sport that I've seen. And it's happened several times. Yeah. But that one in particular, full compound fracture, straight through, ripped through his shin.
Ain't playing basketball anymore.
Well, something really gruesome did happen recently. I can try to pull this up. It wasn't in the NHL. I think it was...
it was
I
over
know
in
what you're
England?
talking about,
I think it was over in England.
I saw that.
Where a hockey player... Because this has happened before.
Yeah, got a Glasgow smile, more or less.
Because this has happened before. I think it happened to Richard Zednick 20 years ago. Where he got his throat cut, but he didn't get it slit.
Yeah.
This guy got it slit.
Yeah, I watched this video in slow motion. So it's just that they basically these players are racing towards the puck. They come together, and it's like a weird, movement. There's like bodies crashing together. Somebody's skates go up into the air. Their legs go up in the air, and you see the contact happen. It doesn't look like anything happened right there.
Yeah, but that's one of those things.
Went right through the
sharp.
Yeah, of course.
They're very sharp.
They went right through the side of this guy's neck, and you can see from his body movement, it's like that panic that happens when you know that you're in terrible, terrible danger. He obviously drops his stick, and he's like on all fours on the ground, and he tries to get up, and the moment that you see that he can't, you're like, oh my God, this guy's about to die. And sure enough, he died a few minutes later from that. Yeah.
And I saw the video of it too, because people are trying to really make it seem like the player that caught his skate on this player's neck did it on purpose.
No, I think it was
I can't imagine that.
The movement of the body. I mean, one guy basically flipped in a weird way in the air. You can't really control.
Well, also
that.
you're on ice. It's very slick, and also you're just skating on a pair of blades. So your balance is precarious.
That was just the most unlucky thing that could have happened. But the truth of it is that you're rolling around with knives on your fucking shoes.
You have razor blades on your feet,
and you're racing into each other at full speed to try and catch a thing. I mean, if you do that long enough, eventually,
it is weird.
And it could be in your neck.
It is weird.
It is weird that doesn't happen more.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It's weird that it doesn't happen more, but also we mostly just watch we don't really watch it in this country, but the hockey that we are aware of in this country is the NHL.
That's fair.
Most people don't do shit like that, and then if a player does do something like that, they're immediately like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like Matt Cook was the type of player, I think he stomped on somebody one time, and everyone was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So I did pull this up just in case, because we're being pretty vague about it. So from the Associated Press, police investigating death of U.S. ice hockey player from skate blade cut in English game. Police are investigating the death of American ice hockey player Adam Johnson after his neck was cut by a blade in a game in England. Johnson, 29, was playing for the Nottingham Panthers at the Sheffield Steelers when he suffered the skate cut in a Champions Cup game on Saturday. This is from October 30th, so it's nowhere near where we are right now. He died at the hospital. He was a Minnesota native who appeared in a total of 13 NHL games with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2019 and 2020. That sucks.
It's terrible luck.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, as you said, Moses, it's shocking that it doesn't happen more often. But, it also, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in one of these games where it's they're semi-pro, they're not really, at the NHL elite level.
No, that's what I was like. I don't expect it really to happen in NHL at all.
Yeah.
But like hockey is played a lot more than just that season.
Yeah.
So it's weird that it doesn't happen more just because of you have razor blades on your feet.
It's also like
Jesus.
This opposing player didn't pull like an Ichi the Killer on him and like,
No, yeah.
you know, like kick slice him in the fucking neck.
Yeah, it wasn't like
Unless there's more to this than we know.
It looks
get in the mystery machine.
I'm telling you, crime podcasts work.
Now, the video that I saw was heavily pixelated, but it looked like he got his skates caught up with the other player.
Yeah.
And then, like, once you're in that position, your feet go
Yeah.
fucking anywhere when you're
yeah.
skating. So it and now his leg goes precariously high.
It does.
So
It does.
At the bare minimum, he was careless with where his feet was going.
I'll give you that for sure.
But
If you kill somebody, then you're careless.
Yeah.
Even if it was an accident.
But some people
we can agree on that.
But some people in the media were trying to make it seem like he did this on purpose. Like he was.
then he's the greatest assassin who's ever lived.
That's some hitman shit.
Yeah. That's another thing that I can add to my grinds my gears is because the sports media is so desperate to talk about shit sometimes. They'll just come up with shit
Build the
out of thin air.
conspiracy.
Well, it's the sensationalization of everything. You know what I mean?
Because when you have a 24-hour news network like ESPN in terms of sports, gotta fucking bring up something.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you have competiters like Fox Sports has like I think it had multiple fucking networks,
I believe
FS1
it
and
did, yeah.
FS2.
And one of them is airing Murder on the Ice. Tune in at 11.
Look what they did to OJ.
Oh, my God.
That was a big NFL setup because they had to interrupt the NBA Finals for
But
it.
look at how many Broncos we sold today.
That's true.
Two?
They just redid them.
Yeah, I heard about this.
They're not great looking.
And on to our next sponsor.
We keep America running. All right, sir. What really grinds your gears about?
My sentiment then would be twofold, and I'll chime in with this conversation about the person who lost their life playing hockey. It's that I enjoy it for what it is, like, and I just mean sports in general.
Yeah.
I think that all human beings enjoy that to a degree. It's human competition, right? At its base level, you're just watching somebody who's physically fit in some way go up against somebody who's also physically fit, and that competition that exists there is what fascinates us.
Yeah.
You know, who's going to win
The
this fight?
meritocracy of sports.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. So one of my problems that I have, just like in general, just to kick it off that way, is and you guys touched upon it, but it's the way in which we want to kind of make it safer. And in some ways, I'm not saying make it unsafe, you know. In some ways, I get that. But then in other ways where it's like, let's have this physically competitive sport where I want you to run into another human being and lift them up and throw them and then steal a ball from them and do whatever you need to do to make a goal or whatever the fuck the sport happens to be. And the idea that we want to remove the idea of violence because we as people, as the viewers, are uncomfortable with the fact that what we really want to do is watch violence.
Yeah.
And we want to remove that violence from it, but actually don't want it removed. It's bullshit. What you want to watch is the violence. We all want gladiatorial games, and yet we act like we don't want to see somebody killed. The reality of it is that people do want the violence. And speaking for myself, when they with football, when they got rid of what do they call it, showboating, and I know they reversed.
I
know they reversed it, but that was when, not that I was super into football, but that was when I like kind of made it a point where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Because it's like this element to it, and that's not even a violent aspect, but it's where you're just trying to water it down and make it into this like database, like almost
Cookie cutter thing,
exactly, yeah. And that's not what it's about. It's not what the viewer wants, and what the corporations that run it, the NFL and so on and so forth, what they want to do is they want to figure out that sweet spot where they can kind of make everybody happy and get the maximum amount of viewers, including viewers who don't care. But the element that makes it interesting and unique is the violent element to it, which is why hockey is the sport that I continue to enjoy watching, because it does maintain that to a degree.
To a degree, because they are trying to remove as much hitting as they can from that. Like, and it's sad to see. But did you guys see that they're actually, I think the NFL is contemplating sending NFL players to the Olympics to play flag football.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because and I think Tom Brady went after this.
Of course he would.
But also, like, you know, he went after like the rules in the NFL too, because and everyone rightfully pointed out, it's like, Tom, you have a fucking rule named after you. So
Yeah.
I don't think you have any room to complain.
Yeah, everybody
Listen,
gets
the
one.
man is on the bottom, so if he wants to complain about the injustice of the world, I understand it, you know.
But that's also like something that's really bizarre to me, because if you're going to send NFL players to play a game that's completely foreign to them, because flag football, it's a completely different game
Absolutely.
from actually tackle football.
It does still involve a puck, right?
a puck.
Do they even have the same amount of players on a field?
I don't think so.
Because why would
I
you
wouldn't
need that
think
much
so.
defense if you're not touching each other, you know?
Yeah, because and also you're not like you just flag football. You just grab the flag that's on the back of the player.
Yeah, and
I
that's
believe.
when you're down or that's your tackle.
Football has this whole conundrum thing that it's not just on the NFL itself; it's on the actual people. Much leading to Fred's point is that like with the whole CTE thing,
Yeah.
you know, because like they
yeah.
want to stop kids from playing. Tackle
Well,
football,
yeah.
but like that's the culture that brings up people to play NFL football.
And not for nothing, it's a game where you're running into somebody.
Yeah.
Like the whole way
Full-
that it's played is
full
that you're
blast.
running in. Exactly. So the idea is that you want to play this, but you want to remove the option of being hurt. How do you do that?
You can't see. It's like they're trying to have it both ways, and it doesn't exist that way.
Exactly.
And that's the problem, and I'll go full circle, actually, to answer your question, though, before I do that. I guess you can play flag football in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 4 players on each side,
Jesus
which is
Christ,
like,
that's
yeah.
There's a lot of variety.
What?
Yeah,
just
there's-
like at the park, right?
I'm just
Sorry, I don't have that many friends.
yeah, I'm just looking at the variations part in Wikipedia. So
So the four of us could start a team of flag football?
Not with you.
Well,
but
yeah, we're one
Theory.
team. We're team L&D. We'll just
Yeah.
blast the
Yeah.
A-team theme,
Oh,
and
man.
we'll be good.
Yeah. Well,
can
when
we-
I'm drunk, I can't feel anything.
Can
so I'm
we
gonna
can we get
dominate.
Legion of Doom fucking gear and shit? There might be something there.
Were there 4 people in the Legion of Doom, though?
It depends. It depends, really. Like, they really have draws as the third, maybe.
We don't want draws.
But that's
LOD.
kind of it. Like, I know there's another one kind of in there, but
All right, so to tie that kind of into what was grinding my gear and kind of go full circle on all of this, the whole point that you were bringing up about trying to make it safe, it is still a part of that politicization of it.
I agree.
Let's just try to make it, it's just kind of like a virtue signal. Like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, we'll make this all so nice. And like, oh, you don't have to worry about your sons or your daughters playing these games anymore because they're not going to get any head contact. And it's bullshit.
It's total
because
bullshit, yeah.
if you play football, if you play hockey, you're going to get contact. It's
Yeah.
the nature of the game.
You run the risk, yeah.
Unless you're playing women's hockey, you shouldn't be hit because that's against the rules. Now,
I didn't even know there was a thing.
there is women's hockey, and nobody cares.
that it
And yet,
shouldn't
I'm
be,
supposed
but,
to fucking believe that, like, women's hockey, like any player that plays in women's hockey, could actually do well in the NHL. It's
Are
like,
they in
honey,
bikinis?
your leg would be broken at an Alexander Ovechkin slap shot if he was going
The
half
shortest
forward.
NHL player is like 7 feet tall.
No, it's like the shortest NHL player is like my height. He's like 5'6".
That's unbelievable.
I mean, like
You wouldn't survive on the ice, Dan.
Well, I'm old. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I have more questions about this women hockey. Like, is it in bikinis?
No, that would make it more interesting.
Oh, yeah, well, the football one is. I don't know.
Well,
We were actually-
that was on Spike TV like 20
Isn't
years
that
ago.
a thing? I just saw something recently.
I want
is it
to
back?
chime in on that because
I think it might be.
This is a conversation at the bar earlier today, which is that the lingerie football that they had for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not who I want to see in lingerie.
Well, that's fair.
Those women
But
could beat the shit out of all 4 of us without trying. One of them.
I'm into that.
One of them. Well, you're a fucking
Yeah, I'm not trying
masochist.
I'm not trying to dunk on women's sports because,
Right.
like, if you watch like women UFC fights, those women are fucking brutal.
Oh, yeah. Once again, could beat the shit
Yeah.
out of us. Yeah.
And the
But that's not
WNBA
who I
don't,
want to
though.
see naked.
Yeah.
Or in lingerie in this case.
But there's also like this idea that women can play in men's sports and not have their fucking clocks cleaned.
No, that's
It's
not a thing.
Yeah, it would be. It's fucking preposterous.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Like,
there-
it's factually untrue,
Yeah.
and it's been examined multiple times.
Didn't Tampa Bay have a lady goalie at
That
one
was
point?
that was practice.
Oh, that was for
That was
just
practice.
know she was like kind of on the team.
Yeah,
but like,
I think I remember that, but yeah, that I remember that was back in the '90s, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
stopped watching.
No.
Muscle mass is different, blood flow is different, lung capacity is
Yeah,
different.
bone-
It doesn't make one better than the other.
The bone
but-
density is different. too.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, like the bottom line is that you can't avoid the evolution of that. Men are even when you're an out of shape guy, the parts are more built for combat essentially.
And this
It's difficult to get around
This
that.
is my line on that because like we've had this sort of thing where you've had like transgender people and stuff like that in the UFC years ago and whatnot, and it's like So what? So maybe we let this go, just so you can see. If you want to have the co-ed sports and see all these women just get absolutely massacred.
Well, that's what it is.
And then no one actually wants to see that, but no one wants to. They want this other thing in practice.
I remember this statistic, and I'm not going to get all the numbers right here, but the essence of it is true. It's that if you were to allow women to participate in like the 500-yard dash sort of thing, and you look at the rankings of these existing athletes, real people, then you've obviously got your top female athlete. She's number one, with women.
Ever. The top woman ever.
And you've got your top guy, right? If you were to just combine them, then the top woman becomes 200 down on the list.
Yeah.
Because the lung capacity simply, it's a physical thing. It's not something that you can get around with hormones or with practice even. Yeah. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's not a denigration of one of the genders or anything like that, but it's just a fact of evolution. So if you want to blame somebody, either blame evolution if you believe in that, or you blame God. Yeah. It's one or the other, But it's not, but if you allow, like, for example, like the way that we have allowed transgenderism in that, then you're putting actual women, or people who were born women at a disadvantage. And then the flip side to it is if you combine the two, the whole reason that they created women's sports, which traditionally, if you go back long enough, they weren't a thing the way that they are today. If you combine them, it means that women never win for the most part. There are some, there are things where there's
outliers. Oh,
yeah, there's outliers. Absolutely. Shooting, as far as if one considers that a sport, women tend to be excellent at that.
Yeah.
It's a different type of thing. But if you want to have
I would consider it a sport because it is a competition and it takes skill.
But if you want to have co-ed football, then guess what? A woman never wins again.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is, So that's why you create this other version of it so that everybody can participate in this thing on a semi-equal playing ground,
And while we can all agree on that, I would like to also take this time before we jump onto the next topic, because this is a really big conservative talking point. Like, every conservative fucking network from here to Timbuktu has taken up this mantle. And I can tell you that they never gave a shit about women's sports up until this point.
Right.
And now I'm supposed to believe, we're here to protect the sanctity of women's sports.
Absolutely.
I'm like, first of all, you don't give a shit.
Right.
You never gave a shit. I don't give a shit. I will tell you I don't give a shit. I'm a sports fan. The only time I ever watched women's sports were when my sisters were actively playing.
And that makes sense.
And then
That does make sense.
And then when I would tell them after their track meet or their field hockey game, it's just like, listen, I don't give a shit if your team wins or loses, but I hope you crush it.
Right.
Because you're my rooting interest.
Yeah.
Like, if your team loses 6-5, I hope you were the one that scored all the goals. Because I don't give a fuck. Like,
I hope you won your races. Fuck the rest of them.
Yeah, I hope you fucking completed the entire track meet in like under 2 minutes somehow. Like, you're fucking the Flash or whatever.
Right.
Because the only thing I care about in terms of you playing these sports is that you get the free ride to go to college. I don't care about the sanctity of women's sports, but also at the same time, I can tell you when I did think that maybe one of my sisters was competing with a boy, I got fucking pissed.
Because it's unfair.
Because it's unfair. And also, you are taking potentially something from my sister.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes down to that, like the pre-collegiate, like looking into like sponsorships.
That's the
and stuff like that.
practical.
I remember in wrestling that we would have to wrestle females, and it's just because there was no female wrestling team. Yeah. They just had every school had like one or two girls that wanted to wrestle. I'm like, fine, whatever. But then you're in a competition, and it's just like, what am I supposed to do here? Like as a guy, like I'm either going to lose to this girl, which is exponentially embarrassing as a child. Just be like, I got beat by a girl, or you're just pounding her, and then it's just like, this doesn't look good. You're not winning.
Yeah.
Let's jump off this topic after this story. But I remember when I was a kid, my brother played hockey, and one of the teams that he was on when I was a kid was his team. I don't think was co-ed, but he was playing against a team that was co-ed.
Gotcha.
And so my brother is my height, so he doesn't really have a whole lot of opportunities to make a mark to prove his worth on a hockey team.
For listeners, that's 4'3".
Yeah, it's like we're both midgets. But he was playing a game and he saw a player with their head down, and so he's like, oh, in hockey, if you have your head down, that's on you.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have your
No.
head down. This is what ended Eric Lindros's career.
Exactly
Because he
right.
kept his head down all the time, then Scott Stevens crushed him, and that was the end of him. So what happened was my brother saw this player, had their head down, and he's like, free lunch. He goes in for the hit, picks up their head, and he notices, oh, fuck, it's the girl. And he doesn't have any time to, like, because in hockey, it's all momentum based. You're fucking gliding on ice with
Yeah.
knives on your feet. He tries to pull up, there's no time, hits her, and everyone on that team was like, fuck this guy.
Well,
Yeah.
as well they should have been,
Which is
but,
what you
like,
should
yeah.
do. But you shouldn't have co-ed hockey
Well, that's
teams.
true. Yeah.
For that reason?
Yeah, for that very, very reason. All right, so we had a really wide girth discussion on sports in terms of what grinds our gears. A lot grinds our
There's a
gears
lot
in
these
sports.
days. Yeah.
It's mostly upsetting.
So let's peel it back and let's be positive now. Moses, we've already talked about, like, you know, your favorite sport was like 90s basketball, but like, let's just go in toto. What is your favorite sport?
I guess it's hard to say now. I would still have to lean into basketball because that's the only thing I really know well as far as rules and whatnot go. But I also, like, I hate baseball, but I love the idea that you could just do whatever the fuck you want and still be exceptional at it. Like a Babe Ruth, like, who's just drunk and fat and just knocking bangers out all goddamn
You could
day.
get paid $10 million a year to not
kinda
run,
do nothing,
to not hit
yeah.
a ball, to not really do anything.
And one of my favorite athletes, Doc Ellis, I believe he played on the Pirates and pitched a no-hitter in the 70s on LSD.
Yes,
and,
he did.
And he didn't even know he was playing. And I love that because a no-hitter is an exceptional thing to do in baseball at any point at any time. Like, that's a hard achievement to achieve. But LSD, like, I've been on LSD more times than I care to admit. But I'll tell you about all of them.
Oh, this I love this headline, just to confirm what you said. So this is from 2017, so there's a few years, but today is the 47th anniversary of Doc Ellis's acid-fueled no-hitter.
Like, how is that not the most fucking awesome thing you've ever heard?
Yeah,
In a sport that is boring as, like, I'd rather play golf than play baseball. I'd rather watch golf than play baseball.
It
It's
is
more athletic.
Yeah.
It is more interesting when you know that they're fucked up.
Yeah,
They're like, they're still
yeah.
playing well.
And I know at the time, I don't think anybody
no,
even knew. Like,
it was 1970.
Oh, Doc Ellis didn't even know.
Yeah.
He's the one doing it. And it's like so amazing. And he pitched a no-hitter. I don't know what team it was, if they were even a good team.
Pittsburgh
but still.
Pirates. Pittsburgh
Oh, I
Pirates.
thought he was on the Pirates.
Yeah, he's on the Pirates.
he's on the
Oh,
Pirates.
yeah.
Or who they were playing. And, like, maybe there was a terrible team. Like,
They were-
maybe they were just children.
They were playing
You
the
know.
San Diego Padres. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah. The old San Diego Stadium, and now San Diego pretty much has nothing, except for it's still the Padres. Poor San Diego.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for them.
There's good food in San Diego.
San Diego is a good San Diego would probably be my favorite place in fucking California to go to.
I could get behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have friends that live in San Diego, and it's like consistent. Like, temperature is very nice,
Yeah.
with also, like, without the drama of, like, LA and shit like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like the consistent temperatures. I feel like you need the variety. I want the four
Well, then
seasons.
go inside and adjust your thermostat, Dad.
I said I wouldn't like the consistent temperature.
Listen, Fred, we'll have to have you back when we do our weather episode in the
I
future.
can't fucking wait. I'm all about meteorology.
You got to put that into the docket.
The weather dominator. Go, Cobra.
But it is funny, speaking of baseball, so, like, when I was a kid, we used to go to Phillies games all the time. My dad was a Phillies fan. My best friend's dad was a Phillies fan. And he used to bring us to Old Veteran Stadium. It was great. And it's like I think of, like, the players, but, like, John Crook. And I think
Oh yeah, the old the 93
The one
Phillies
nut Crook.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think he ended up writing a book. It was just called I Ain't an Athlete, Lady.
I mean, if you looked at him, yeah, he's kind of right.
The 93 Phillies team and like the 87 Mets team.
Yeah.
I think it was the 87 Mets team. They're like notorious for just being like party animals.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I fucking love that about like old school sports. Like the 1974, 1975 Philadelphia Flyers. They were known as the Broad Street Bullies.
Yep.
They were also fucking party animals and like womanizers and all that stuff. The more you find out about like the old school teams, they're like, yeah, they were just banging random broads and then they played a game. Like, I think it was Reggie Leach got fucked up and then he scored like a hat trick in a playoff
believe
game. Like,
so, yeah.
It's just like, you find out about that stuff and you have more respect for the athlete. Like,
Yeah, it is amazing.
I will tie that back in then with the corporate aspect,
Yeah.
which is that back in the day, these were real people who were also incredible at these physical feats. Whereas today, if you have enough money, you can just fucking have a nutritionist and a this and a that, and you can manufacture an athlete to a degree.
It's become what the culture of this industry is.
We learned that from Rocky IV.
That was Ivan Drago.
Yeah.
That was Rocky. He was going out into the cold, pulling the sleigh of his friends.
I'm sure if Rocky was playing for the Phillies, which presumably he would have been.
Yeah, probably did.
That would have been Mitch Williams, and Mitch Williams was probably the worst of all of them. I think he was like a cocaine fiend.
Oh,
on that
absolutely.
team. But that's why you like those teams, though. It's like, they were partying, but the Phillies didn't win shit. But like that team went it all the way to the World Series. They lost to Toronto, but like you kind of gravitate towards those teams because they seem like an average Joe, even though they're good at the sport, but they get fucked up at the end.
Because that's the appeal. It's that you want somebody who's got a higher physical acumen than you've got as like regular Joe Schmo watching it. Any one of us, certainly, pretty much everybody for the most part, unless you're an athlete. But at the same time, you want somebody to be relatable because there's an idealization that happens. That's what celebrity is.
I think that's why in baseball it is more akin to worship because they're not in terribly great shape where in other sports, but like also depending on the position in the sport, they're in better shape than a baseball player.
Yeah.
At any given point.
I'm in better shape than most baseball players. I drank like fucking 15 drinks today.
Those are rookie numbers.
You had fucking macaroni and cheese for lunch, which is insane.
Oh my God! But I can't remember. Cologne used to play for the Met. Big sexy, like this gigantic fucking dude, man. It's like how can you even run from base to base?
Yeah.
It's
You barely need to though. You just gotta hit a home
Cologne,
run, and then you walk it.
Like, holy shit. Yeah, baseball's always been funny in that way, though.
Because you do have those people that are...
Bartolo Colon.
Bartolo, yes, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, he was a large motherfucker.
You just look at him, it's like, Jesus Christ, man.
It is, because you'll have somebody like pitcher from the Diamondbacks that killed the bird.
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
He's a fucking stick. Yeah. And then you got somebody, there's a guy on, I want to say the Red Sox, I can't remember his name. Big dude, like just mostly belly. And he would just be cranking them out. And those two people, I think, were playing at the same time. And it's just remarkable that they are both in the same sport and the top of their game.
You had Randy Johnson, who was like, supremely tall.
Yeah, he was 6'8".
He was a little too tall for a pitcher, but they still allowed it.
If you pulled his flesh off, he'd be Jack Skellington.
Yeah, and then as you said, he disintegrated a bird.
Yeah.
And that poor bird was just, like, I hate birds, but as you see it, just like, go right into the ball and just go poof.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, I never stop laughing at that as many times as I say, because it's just so amazing how coincidental that is.
Well, or the bird wanted to die. You've been planning that out for a long time.
Who knows what the mechanics are behind?
It's hard to
that
kill
incident,
yourself
but
when you have no thumbs.
You got plenty of power lines. I don't know.
That's the shit that I look back on that, like, I have fond memories of when it comes to sports.
Oh, fuck. Randy Johnson is 6'10".
He's
Jesus
that tall?
Christ.
I knew he was tall, but
That is
6'10"?
tall.
That's
Yeah.
like,
Got to duck down to get through a doorway.
He's got to duck down just to get into the field.
Yeah.
That's probably why he played in Arizona. This was open field.
well, he also played in Seattle.
Yeah.
He was with the Mariners
Oh,
for
right,
a while.
he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might be where that actually happened or when he was on Seattle.
I think it might have been. Justin, I know you had a falling out with football, but back in the day you used to watch the Raiders. Would that still be like your favorite sport, or do you still have something like you like to catch up time to time, maybe with hockey or basketball or baseball or something like that?
I would say I more or less gave up on baseball. I don't follow baseball at all. Also, it's too many fucking games.
162 is insane.
Yeah, insane. Football, I still do follow. I don't watch the games, but I still follow it. 16 games a year, whatever.
Oh, they increased it
they
to
had
17.
32.
It's
17 now, yeah.
No, they
was it 32 weeks, wasn't it? I don't know.
No,
I used to play Madden. That's the only reason I know that.
No, it's every team plays 17 games and they get a bye. So I think it's 18.
18,
okay.
yeah. And so like I do obviously still follow football. I just don't watch the games. And like Most of my friends follow football, so I still have to be kind of in the know.
Yeah.
Especially at work, because that's all they fucking talk about. I still kind of follow hockey, though not as much as I used to, though. So I would say, yeah, football's still my number one. Even though it aggravates the absolute fucking shit out of me, it's the one I follow the closest, for sure.
Yeah, it's like the cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's just like if the Super Bowl's coming up and you're not watching it, you kind of feel like a loser.
Yeah.
You kind of do.
Yeah.
You kind of do. And I've had years that, like, when I, like, really got off football where I'm like, I'm not paying attention, I am not looking at all. And then it's like, Super Bowl comes, like, so who's having a Super Bowl party?
Yeah.
Where can I get free chicken wings?
Yes.
I'm only interested in the Super Bowl now for the commercials, and it's nice to have the internet because I don't actually have to watch the game. I could just wait till the game's over and then go online and watch all of those commercials at once. And
See if a titty slip happens, and that's it.
That hasn't happened in 20 years. The one year I wanted a
Dan,
titty
let
slip.
me live in the past.
I wanted a titty slip when Katy Perry was doing the halftime show. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Anyway, what's your, I think I actually know what your favorite sport is, so we can actually have a back and forth about it.
So, chiming in with the previous statements that I've made, I still enjoy hockey.
Yeah.
It's the as far as the main American sports, basically of the ones that are popular that you can talk to somebody about that are on at the bar, it's hockey because it's the one that maintains at least some level of the violence that I think is intrinsic to any sport.
Yeah.
You still do have fights in hockey. It's an aggressive sport. I like to see that. I enjoy football like a little bit these days, but it's there's so many pauses. It takes forever to get through it. And sometimes it's like the other day I was watching, I forget what it was. It was at fucking Giants Jets. And it was just like, it just went on for forever. They were like 7-7.
It does with the
It was
amount
like
of
8
breaks.
hours went by. It was brutal.
Yeah.
We were in like the 6th quarter and it just kept going. And in baseball, I've already expressed how boring that is to me. I do think that soccer is interesting, but just being an American, it's not. I never got into it.
Yeah.
So
I never got into it either.
It's culturally hard to get into.
Yeah.
Because I've had interest. Because I used to like hang out at this.
It's the most popular sport in the world.
Yeah.
Always on the TV in a different language, and I would sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
But like, it's a commitment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to get into and just to follow a team, let alone just the game itself.
My favorite sports, and this is going to be a super outlier here. I'm going to need you to look up these names because of how obscure they are. But I was watching something on like Amazon or Netflix that was like like weird sports that you've never heard of.
Oh, I think we've watched this before.
We have watched this, yeah. And one of them was from Venice, and it's like football. It's an ancient Roman game that's very much so like football. If you're looking up the name, that'd be great.
Isn't that just rugby?
No, but rugby is the better football as far as I'm concerned, and that one is more popular these days. But essentially, the gist of it is that it's set up in a similar way to the way that you have your teams in football, but when you make contact with your opponent, instead of just like tackling them and then like moving on to stop them from interfering with like what you want to do with the ball, instead you meet your opponent in the middle of the field and begin a boxing match.
What?
This is what the XFL should have been.
Yeah. And it's basically like you just get into a fucking brawl with this other human being, and your goal is to like physically defeat them to where they can't get up.
No shit.
So like that's how you
fun.
occupy their time while your other players are moving around with the ball, hopefully. And it's a sport that goes back. So it's played in Venice, if I'm not mistaken, and it's like super local there. So it's like the last place that still plays it. But it's an ancient game that used to be played much more so all over the Roman Empire. So it was widespread. And I love it because of this, like, because the more that you involve of that, where it's like, I need to meet this other person in the middle of the field. And like, yeah, we play the same sport and we respect each other, but I'm not just going to tackle you because you have the ball. I'm going to break your fucking jaw. Like, and then I'm going to leave you there bleeding and move on to your teammate who also happens to be your neighbor. And I love like the visceral nature of it, the passion that exists in that. And this is the way that a lot of old sports used to be. You know, even just looking at the Roman Empire, you had gladiatorial games, just hyper violence that existed in them. Not that I want to see people get brutalized in this way, but at the same time, it is what I want to see.
You're
It's
so American.
it's what everybody wants to see.
It's the nature of football baseball and hockey.
Yeah, you want to see that fucking crazy fucking tackle. You want to see somebody get completely obliterated by the team that you support.
Well, it's also like the facsimile of warfare.
Yes.
Yeah,
It is.
it's an analogy for warfare. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I still like watching sports, because I'm one of the people that are like, oh, how did they win this fucking game?
Yeah.
I'm the type of weird person that I'm like, I can know the score of a college football game that I have no dog in the fight. I don't care who won the game, but I want to know how they won the game. Now, the only thing I want to do is I just breeze through all the stoppages and the fucking commercials. So I want this to take about an hour and a half rather than the 4 hours of college football game takes. But like, yeah, I care about the strategy. I care about like what they do here. Well, how did that happen? Because a lot of the times the score is just like, it's only just what, like, that's how they predicated who won, but it doesn't tell you the actual story.
Right, of course.
Like, if the score is 31-17, well, how'd they get there? What, did your team just suck?
You're trying to outsmart and outgun your opponent. So the warfare analogy is 100%. That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's why we find a fascination with it, because, and I'll draw the philosophical here, that the reason that we love that shit is because we're violent.
Yeah.
That's the whole nature of it.
Yeah, we're just primitive apes that just
we're
violence.
And we are war monkeys.
I want to see my war monkey break another war monkey's skull and fuck you, because you're not the same as me, even though we're the same.
War Monkey is a band name.
It probably is taken.
So I'll pop in here because we are running out of time. We had a pretty long conversation. My favorite sport was and always will be hockey. I don't watch the NHL anymore because, like, a little inside baseball, I worked at the NHL.
Yeah.
And they laid me off, and I've been bitter and resentful ever since. But no, it's just because, like, honestly, like, I was a better worker and a better editor than the people that they kept. Like, there was one guy that they kept on there that wore sweatpants every day on the day shift. Wow. And, like, they kept him over me.
Carl?
And I was just... Come here, bitch. Stand and deliver.
Dan, none of it don't matter. None of this matters.
So that really kind of was like a moment for me where it's like, I don't think I can sit and watch. Also, like, working 3 seasons with the NHL and cutting highlights and all that stuff, it really takes you out of, like, enjoying
the fun
game.
of it. The fun of it.
Because there's so many times. I remember after I got laid off, I got a new job. I'm sitting there. It's the start of a new hockey season. I'll watch, I think it was the Blues and the Bruins, because it was a rematch of the Stanley Cup final the year prior. And I was like, I'll watch this. And then I was like, the entire time I was watching, I'm like, this is going into overtime. This is going on overtime. And then it did. And I'm like, off.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I can't, the amount of times that now hockey goes into overtime is just absolutely infuriating to me.
Yeah, it's like 2-2.
Yeah, it's 2-2, goes into overtime, everybody gets a point, and then it's like, it's the equivalent of a tie, shut up, and just, I want to go to bed. I don't want to sit through your overtime, and I don't want to sit through your shootout anymore. Replacing that, one of the things that I always kind of resented when I did work at NHL is I like watching college hockey, and I like watching international hockey. And international hockey kind of feeds into my geopolitical fucking side. Where I'm like, I fucking love watching Russia versus, like, the Czech Republic, because the Czechs are so fucking into the game.
Yeah.
They really want to beat the Russians. This is why I hate the fact that the Russians aren't allowed to play in international sports right now because of the fucking Ukraine thing. I'm like, let them play. I don't care.
Settle it on the ice.
Yeah.
And I at least see it with the little bit that I watch of that. It's one of those things where the team or the entity that you hate the most is the one that you have the most in common with.
Yeah.
I'll never fight any one of you the way that I'll fight my brother.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Like that, because there's a competition there goes back to before I was born. You know? And that's what you get when you watch one of these international things, and especially when you're watching, like, the Czechs versus the Russians, classical allies in some ways, and then in other ways there's this, like, vitriol between them, because which one of we love and respect each other, but one of us needs to be the best, and we're gonna decide that tonight.
I just love it too, because the Russians are like the Yankees, they're like the Flyers or Rangers. They're like the team that everyone in the international hockey scene has a rivalry with. Canada hates Russia. The United States hates Russia, obviously. Czech Republic hates Russia.
And they
Finland
love to be
Russia.
hated.
Sweden hates Russia. Like, every single country hates Russia.
Sweden. It's like, you're not supposed to hate anyone.
You shut up.
It's just, come on, grow up. Let the Russians play. The hockey players aren't the one invading Ukraine.
No.
So
If they were, though, my God.
I mean, they have nothing else to do now.
The war would be over. But But also at the same regard, I will say I still watch the NFL, but I only watch the Dolphins, and I'm only kind of in it because
They've been doing great.
They've been doing all right. They have the main reason I'm still watching them is because they have Tua Tagovailoa.
Yes.
And I remember when I was kind of like, I might not watch the NFL anymore because I'm tired of this kneeling bullshit. I'm tired of all the virtue signaling. And the Dolphins suck. Why am I still watching it? And they're like, oh, we're going to tank for Tua. And I'm like, but I like this Joe Burrow guy. Right. Can we just draft him? And then, but there was a whole like, tank for Tua. And then they got Tua because like he had a massive hip injury.
Yes.
And then he slid down to 5 and the Dolphins were able to grab him. And then he played like a few games that season. He had a massive, like, huge fucking hip injury. He probably shouldn't have been playing that year.
No.
And he still did. And the Dolphins fans were like, no, not him. Let's go get Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And I'm like, well, first of all, great that you didn't get Deshaun Watson because he's got like 90 fucking sexual assault charges on him and he sucks for Cleveland. And Tua's been great.
Yeah.
It's like watching the Dolphins is like watching, like, you guys remember Tecmo's Super Bowl in the NES?
Of course. Yeah.
It's like watching that in real life.
Like, you can't be Bo Jackson. That's not fair.
Yeah. And also to kind of tie this up, you know, as much as I fucking hate what we do in a political aspect with our military, I can never not watch Navy.
Yeah.
Like, Navy is like, that's my anchor. And that is a pun. And I did not mean that. And that's terrible.
That's what you meant.
That's a retroactive pun.
Yeah.
But like, I will always watch every single Navy game. I don't care what I have to do. I literally had a date come over to my house because I'm like, I'm watching the Navy game. Come over to my house and we'll go on the date after that. Yeah.
Overtime.
Overtime.
Put her in the side room.
Yeah.
Bowl of water, some food.
You're free to watch it with me. You're just probably not going to enjoy it on the same level that I do. And also, like, the Army-Navy game.
Yeah.
The Army-Navy game is like the reason that I joined the military. The Army-Navy game is just like, you remember being a kid, being like 7, 8, 9 years old, and you give so much of a shit about this game.
Right.
Like, this is the most important thing in the world. And now you're like closing in on 40 or over 40 for you old motherfucker.
Well, it could be 32. I don't know.
Who's to say?
It don't matter. None of this matters.
That is one of the few games that I give so much of a shit about. Like, you have a Hanukkah party every year, and it always lines up with the Army-Navy game. And my mood going into that game, going into that party, is dependent on that game.
In fairness, when I get to the center of the earth and us Jews have that meeting, we do time it for that.
At least your time isn't being wasted down there.
And I can tie this
We
into
exchange shekels.
and I can tie this into, because we are running out of time, into our last segment. Favorite sports moments. I have to go with pretty much every fucking Army-Navy game I've been to prior to 2016 when Army snapped the streak. That probably was my brother's favorite sports moment. Going to those games, going to the Army-Navy game, I can tell you really quick, the first one I ever went to when I was fresh out of the Navy, my brother and I went to, it was 2008. We showed up, the game at that time started at noon, so we showed up at like 6 in the morning. 8, 7 in the morning, and we were trashed by like 9. Like, I remember my cousin, he was meeting us there. He was showing up, and he was just like, we're blasting like whatever music we're listening to, and the way he describes it is like, yeah, I got there at like 9:30, and you guys were already fucking wasted. We were so drunk and she went to this game too, although she showed up so fashionably late that she missed the entire game. I separated from my brother and my cousin, and we're walking into Lincoln Financial Field, and I'm like, I have to drop this ticket off for my friend, and I am so fucking wasted right now that I don't know how I'm going to, like, first of all, do this thing, like, interact with a stranger.
Right,
And then,
right.
let alone, how am I going to find my cousin and my brother?
Oh, yeah.
Like, where are they? What's going on with them? And then I ran into them by accident. Like, I was going up like a
Escalator?
What would you call it? A slope? No, like
Oh,
just like
the ramps that they
the
have?
ramps.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. And then we just ran into each other, and we never left the ramps. Never left those ramps.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, we're just here for the rest of the fucking.
Do they not have, like, because I imagine it's all seats, so weren't there seat numbers on your tickets?
There were. We just never went.
Well, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I've been to concerts in stadiums like that where
Yeah.
there's no general admission, it's just seats, and you kind of just wander.
Yeah.
And there's other stories, but they're not sports related. You just find a seat, and because I've done this, not for any sports place that I went to, but I went to an elimination chamber.
Oh, okay.
In MSG. And this is a little pro tip for all you drunkards out there. If you can ask for samples at the beer vendors, and they give you little cups. and they'll just give you a
Really?
little. Yeah, and you can get drunk for free if you go to them in a certain order. Which I found out.
And I suppose it's better than paying $18 for.
Oh yeah, like it's a
gig
pain in
like
the
that.
ass to stand in line. But if something's going on there, like even sports, they're playing the game out there. A lot of people aren't at the concession until there's like a halftime or a 2-minute timeout or whatever, whatever the game's appropriate. And you just get up there and just ask for a taste of each, and then you move on to the next beer vendor, and they're typically inclined to do it.
Wow.
And that's how you drink for free. I forgot what I was talking about because that little drunken tidbit came out.
You were at Elimination Chamber in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, we never got to our seats. I know we had them because we got in, but a lot of it was just kind of wandering around as if it was a concert, like just trying to get the better seat.
Yeah.
But this isn't that kind of, like, there's nobody really standing in a general admission kind of area where there's no seats. They're just standing and trying to get close to crowd surf and whatever. Because it's an event, like a legitimate event, not a music venue, or event, rather. And it was a lot like, because I didn't know where I was supposed to be, and those ushers constantly want to know where you're supposed to be. And I can't read tickets, nor did I have it on me anymore. I probably wasted that on doing blow in the bathroom. But it's a fun time, even if you're not into the sport, because I've had some of these experiences at like a baseball game or I think I saw the Jets and Vikings. I'm like, I don't give a shit about any of this.
I agree with that because I remember I did a Maryland trip with my cousin. He's a Cowboys fan. I'm a Navy fan. So we went to the Navy East Carolina game a few years ago. And then the next day we went to the Redskins Cowboys game. So, like, I have no dog in the fight in terms of the Redskins Cowboys. So I just decided to get as drunk as humanly possible. And then I was like, he sent me to like, hey, man, when you get up to go another beer, can you get me one too? I'm like, yeah. And then I showed up like 90 minutes later.
Right.
Because I was just like, I got a beer. I was chatting with some girl. I was just like, I was just being like a finagler. I was just like, hey, how you doing, honey? Like, where are you sitting?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on all that. I used to go to Trenton Titans games, which is like an A league of.
Yeah, it's a minor league,
minor league
team, but it's like below the AHL.
Yes. And it was just bedlam and mayhem, but like the most fun. So many characters. You had this puckhead guy that's at every fucking game. He's like fucking with everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's just getting shit-faced and throwing shit at each other. I miss that kind of shit.
Yeah.
That shit was just so much fun back in the day.
I think it might be more fun to go to a game where you have no investment whatsoever and just get trashed.
That is fun, but I will tell you, a few years ago, the last two times I went to Navy Air Force games. Navy pulled off like not even miraculous comebacks because they had like massive leads and blew it to Air Force. But in like the last drive, they won the game and like the field empties out with all the midshipmen. The first time I went there, I'm like hugging strangers. You're like, yeah, we fucking won. It's just like, that is to me, and it's like kind of to go full circle to what we were talking about with like Colin Kaepernick, and it's like, it's racist. It's the ultimate unity.
It is.
In terms of like, sports. So it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, if we're like rooting for the same team or if we enjoy the same sport, we're like, full fuck you, but like, like, fucking like, punch the guy in the shoulder and like, we'll have a beer later. That's the thing in terms of like really grinding my gears because it's the wedge between that.
It is.
Like, I can be at a bar and it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your skin color is, what you believe. If we're rooting for Tua to like fucking lead this comeback against the fucking whoever, the Bills, the Jets, the Patriots, don't fucking matter. If we're both on that fucking train, then like it doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter all of this fucking bullshit.
Exactly right.
I didn't ask you. Well, have you had any favorite sports moments before we close up shop here?
I'll chime in by saying that I second the camaraderie that exists. I don't find it in a team that I love, though I do enjoy the Devils very much. Instead, I find it in the hatred of one team, and that's the Patriots.
Yes, and that we can all agree.
Yeah,
especially
and
me, being a Dolphins fan.
Everyone, it seems, in this country, we live in a country filled with sycophants and morons, I guess, who adore the Patriots, but in fact, this is just an awful abomination. And so when I find myself, though I'm not an enormous football fan as mentioned, when I find myself at the bar and they are on the television, I will find the other people, and thank God we live in New Jersey and not God-forsaken New England. But when I am there, I find these other people who also hate the Patriots. with the same vitriol that I have, and I do become friends with them. There's a camaraderie there.
Yes.
A camaraderie and the hatred of another group of Americans who like a team that's different from mine. And ironically, of course, I don't have a team.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. It doesn't matter.
I just hate the Patriots. It's largely just because of how loved they are. And there's other caveats to that as well. But I just don't like the Patriots. I don't like anybody who's like the fucking big dog where it's like they're just always the best. They always win. That type of thing. You're automatically my foe if that's, if that's your angle. And fortunately, again, where we live, I always find the other people. And they usually do have a team. And they're like, oh,
for sure.
Are you a Jets fan? You love the Giants, the Eagles? And I'm like, no, I don't give a shit about your politics. I was like, but I just want to hate on keep the government out right now. And they're willing to look past that.
Yeah.
That I don't love their team so long as I hate the Patriots.
Yeah.
And indeed I do. I am passionate about that. And it seems to work out well for me.
I have only one thing to say about the New England Patriots.
What on earth?
There you go.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Well, we can all agree that we hate the New England Patriots, but we also agree you should subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Check us out on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and hit that notification bell. Follow us on social media. We are at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you enjoyed this podcast, then become a Loud and Drunk supporter at loudanddrunk.locals.com and patreon.com/loudanddrunk. So, Justin, you have any closing thoughts to wrap us up here?
Don't pay attention to the big business side of it. If you love the game, just go enjoy the game.
Moses, we have a perfect opportunity for you to drop a wrestling reference right now.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that, Dan. I'm going to say roll, tide, roll.
Oh, you.
Wow, roll tide, motherfucker.
After the whole fucking big dog thing, you know what?
Well earned. Well earned.
Well, I can't let the Patriots get that shit. Fuck them.
Closing thoughts.
Go Birds!
So for Justin, Moses, and I actually completely forgot your name the entire time. That's why I
Fred
haven't mentioned-
Williamson.
There you go, for Fred.
I played for the Chiefs, motherfucker.
And that's
How
why-
is Taylor?
And that's why
Doing well.
You know what? The entire episode where we were talking about grinding our gears, we never got to that because fuck Taylor Swift and fuck Travis Kelce.
I love Taylor Swift. I don't know who that other guy is.
Yeah, I don't know what they look like or who they are, really. She's
So
a
for
singer?
all-
We're exiting.
So for all of these motherfuckers, I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, go Navy, beat Army.
Attaboy.
Nice. I got to get tickets to that Eras tour.